This is Glendon Hall in Northamptonshire, a building with over 400 years of history. And this bit round here belongs to Martin Hipwell, who decided to build his mother a new house. But when he dug the foundations, he uncovered every builder's worst nightmare: a dead body. And not just one, but another one, and another, and another, and another, and another, and another. So what are they all doing in the outbuildings of an English country house? And just as importantly, how come no one knew they were there? Time Team's got just 3 days to come up with the answers. The imposing Glendon Hall is a patchwork of different styles and phases of architecture dating back to the 17th century. Martin's family live in the stable block overlooking the Victorian workshop where he discovered the bodies. How's your mum facing up to the fact that there are all these dead bodies under where they're going to live?
I'm more concerned about the skeletons and how they feel about Mother coming to live here.
Yeah. How did you find them?
The builder, who was on the digger, just came across a piece of bone, which initially we thought was obviously animal, but realised later that it was quite obviously human, and it was this part of a forehead.
How long was it after that that you realised that there wasn't just one body but a whole load?
Straight away, within 10 minutes.
Mate, this is the very first time you've seen these, isn't it?
Yeah.
What do you reckon? What's your instinct?
Well, if this is the density of them,
Yeah.
where all these yellow marks are, then it suggests it's a cemetery. And if the alignment of these is right, I guess this is what, east-west for these burials?
Yes, almost exactly, yes.
Then we'd assume they were Christian. So it looks to me like some sort of medieval cemetery. That'd be the period I'd think of.
Medieval cemetery sound right to you?
Well, we know there was a church at Glendon many, many years ago. We don't know where it was.
Right.
It would be very interesting to know where the church was.
Yeah.
So how do you want to tackle the site?
Well, we've got to empty some of these graves anyway, because you want the burials out of the way you're going to develop
Yes,
the area.
particularly on the other side of this wall.
Yeah. So we'll do that. But then if there's a church in the immediate vicinity, we should be looking for that.
Just a thought. How do your children feel about these bodies?
We've nicknamed them our friends in the south, so they've actually almost become friends to the children. So they're not at all concerned. In fact, it feels better now down here than it ever has done in the past.
First of all, we'll get to work on two of Martin's friends in the south to see what they can tell us about the place where they were buried. Phil will need to dig through a lot of building rubble before he reaches his skeleton, but Jackie McKinley, our burials expert, can already see some bone.
I think I've got some skull here, but it's pretty smashed.
Martin's found bodies all over his building site. Just a few feet away from Jackie, inside the incident room, he's discovered the skeleton of a child. And there was a line of 5 adults under the table where Stuart and Henry are scouring the maps for evidence of the church.
So what you got then, Jackie?
Well, I have got some skull here. You can see it's ever so close to the surface. And at the same level, I've got bits of blue plastic turning up. So whether it's in situ or it's been redeposited, I don't know.
Because I can see there's a bit of bone there.
Yeah.
You can't actually trace it around.
Yeah.
And there's another bit there.
Yeah.
But at least with a skull there, at least you've got something to work to, and you've
Yeah.
got a level to work to.
Yeah.
I ain't got a level to work to at the minute.
While work continues in the cemetery, we're just beginning our hunt for the church. And just under a huge yew tree, the other side of the incident room, is a garden folly made up of stacks of masonry, some of which looks suspiciously like it might have come from a church.
There's a lot of tumbled windows here and stuff. But that's interesting because looks like it's part of a very large window originally, with sort of round rather than pointed heads to it.
Does that look part of... Do they look like church windows to you?
It could be church. I mean, they could even be domestic with that, but even if they are church, they would suggest that something radical going on with this church in the early 16th century, that sort of period. In fact, just looking over there, there's a bit of other side of masonry. This looks like marble.
Decorated, isn't it?
Yeah, and that looks... It is marble.
Where would that be in the church?
This looks like it's from a monument, a tomb or something like that.
Right.
But that again looks 16th century to me. But a rather nice bit of work. I mean, that's expensive stuff to bring in.
So all these bits of church that you see here, you would think are from the church we're looking for?
I would think so, yeah. Not necessarily in the right order, but from the church you're looking for. Yeah, certainly.
So the folly doesn't look like it's the church itself, but at least we now know we're looking for a posh late medieval church. Perhaps that could have been connected to some grand house that was here before the current Glendon Hall. And maybe the people buried in its graveyard lived in that very house.
Right, can we have some labour, please?
Knowing the extent of the cemetery might help locate the church, so Phil calls in the rest of the team to look for a boundary.
You can see here that the graves do show up. There's the natural, this really compacted sort of iron stain material, very hard, and with sort of flat plates of this stuff in there. And then you can see that here we've got the outline of a grave, apparently much truncated, chopped off. So what we're proposing is to take a strip continuing from this grave right the way back that way. We'll take one through the middle, and we'll take one from where Jackie is going that way, because these things look as though they're in lines. So we might have a row of graves here, and then perhaps a gap, and then another row of graves here, another gap, so on and so forth.
We're plotting the graves as we find them to work out the shape of the cemetery, and there seems to be a gap under part of the incident room. Geophys are sent in to investigate, but even with ground-penetrating radar, they are finding it difficult to see through the concrete floor. According to local historians, a stained glass window in the hall came from the old church of St Helen at Glendon. Richard, these don't look like stained glass to me.
They're not. They're actually painted glass, and almost certainly not English. They're probably Flemish.
And it's bizarre that it's just these two colours.
That's all they could achieve at that time in the early 16th century. Just the two colours, the yellow and the black, and obviously the white is the unpainted glass. It's only later, when they got enamelling sorted out, they could actually introduce a colour to it.
How high quality is this glass?
Well, I would say that's top notch. I mean, just look at that, the actual quality of the detailing in the beards and the clothes and things. It's fantastic.
So what does this imply to you about the church?
It implies that somebody had a lot of money to spend on the church. No matter what size it was, they had enough money to lash out on fantastic, top-of-the-range Flemish glaziers.
While the team continues stripping back the cemetery, Helen's scouring the diocese records for information about the church. Helen, have you managed to find out much about our mysterious church?
Yeah, a few dates at least. It seems to have been around for a pretty long time.
Like when?
Well, the first record, 1254 here, valued at 6 marks and a half, which is not very much. It's a very little sum, so presumably a small church. Then it goes on, we got records down to the dissolution of the monasteries, and then from the Diocese of Peterborough, we've got records from 1793 to 1812, so coming right up to within the last couple of hundred years.
And does it seem as though it was always fairly small?
Yes, it does. We got this description here in the 1720s. It says consists of a body and chancel, so there's no aisles, no mention of a tower. It's not grand, it's just a little two-room church.
Puzzling, isn't it, that we've got those beautiful Flemish windows?
Yeah, and they're a very odd date as well, 1563. You're not supposed to be putting religious iconography into churches at that point. You're supposed to be almost becoming a Puritan.
So what does that tell you?
I don't know.
Something to find out in the next 2.5 days, isn't it? What about our bodies?
Well, we haven't got as much detail about burials as we have about the rest of the life of the church. The burial register doesn't seem to have survived. That would be from the dissolution onwards, about 1538 onwards. So we don't know who was buried in this church after that. And of course we wouldn't know who was buried before because no records were ever kept.
If the records can't help us, we'll have to rely on the burials themselves. But there's no shortage of those.
We got one grave in there.
Yeah.
And we got one grave in there. Gee, I wonder if there's might be one over there.
There is a slight dark patch there, isn't there?
It goes right through there. Yeah.
Stewart's noticed something on an 1817 map that might indicate the location of the church or a predecessor to the hall.
That bit there. You see that very pronounced kick?
Oh,
there?
this is where it turns into this lane here.
That's that driveway, yeah, heading up there. But originally, I think that road came through here, which is this hollow down here.
The one that goes past where the cars are as well.
That's it, going through there. And when you look at the maps, it takes a line straight through back onto that road there.
Right.
But something has made that kick go
Sort of bypass, in fact.
Exactly. Now, when that happens, it's often going round a
something.
memorial site or a churchyard
Yeah.
or something like that.
Geophirs begin to survey the area to see if they can find what caused the road's diversion. Four grave cuts are now under investigation in the cemetery. Phil's finding a lot of redeposited bones, probably disturbed by builders centuries before Martin started work on his mother's house. And a few feet away, Jackie's skeleton is set hard in the sticky, trampled clay.
As you can see, this is quite a short grave, and that's because it's a young individual.
So does that explain why it's in such a bad state?
Yeah, I mean, the bone is very, very fragile anyway. You can see the skull's very, very thin.
So are those the legs?
Yeah, we've got the two femurs here, so that's a bit of the thigh bones, but they've been cut at the knee by this going in. And then the additional complication is there's actually another individual there.
I can hardly see that at all.
Yeah.
Well, that's two tiny scraps of bone.
It is. That's a piece of pelvis, believe it or not. But that's part of probably not even a full-term fetus that's been put in here. Yeah.
So if we've got two children here, do you think we could be looking at some kind of zone of children around here?
Well, it's interesting you should say that because of the graves we've got in this area. Just round there's an infant. The two graves that Phil had over there have got what look like an infant and a juvenile in them. And the only adult bone we've had is out of the redeposited bone out of the pit that he's got there.
The grave cuts are narrow, and the arms seem to be positioned tight to the body as if shrouded. This suggests that these are poor burials and not residents of any previous hall. But it turns out that Glendon used to be much more than just a big house. It's described in the Domesday Book as a settlement consisting of 9 households, the remains of which could be in the fields surrounding the hall.
We've got the earthworks survey that the Royal Commission did back in the 1970s. You can see the hollow way and various other earthworks around the site.
Yeah. What does a hollow way mean?
Well, it's just the road has sunk basically, and it's probably sunk through where. But it's lined, you see, with these rectangular platforms, which are the sites of the peasant farms, with the farmhouse and the barns and all the rest of it. And you can see a whole row of them along the hollow way.
So what do we know about the village other than the earthworks?
Well, the key piece of information we've got is from what's called the Domesday of Enclosure, 1517, and a chap called Robert Mallory held part of the manor, and he had 12 houses here, and he swept away 9 of them. And that's the process of enclosure for sheep farming that helps to explain why the village went.
Why does it suddenly become economically viable to evict people and then turn the land over to pasture?
Well, you've got to go back a stage, really, to the Black Death in 1350, which wrecked the social structure of a lot of these villages. They relied on peasants working together to farm. If half to a third of them die off, then, it makes it very difficult to work the system. And landlords struggled on all through the 15th century, but in the end they gave up, evicted the remaining peasants and turned these places into what were effectively sheep or cattle ranches.
So the people who are buried here, are they likely to have been the people who were living by the side of the hollow way?
I think it's almost certain that they would have been. If they are living round here and farming the fields around here and they've got a church and a churchyard, this is likely to be the place that they're buried.
Stuart and Henry are beginning to survey the earthworks north of the Hollow Way to see what Glendon might have looked like during the medieval period.
See this bank running along here?
Yeah.
This is interesting because it's exactly parallel to the line of that Hollow Way.
By the trees?
Yeah, the old roadway. And it's quite possible this is like a back boundary to properties which were fronting that roadway.
Oh, right, OK.
We're now expanding the cemetery trench beyond our line of graves to see if we've reached its eastern boundary. Geophys have really struggled to come up with anything useful around the incident room because the land's so disturbed. So instead, we're putting in a series of test pits to determine the size and shape of the cemetery. Rakshaw's looking for the western boundary, while Kerry's tackling the south. But will any of this help us find the church? Mick seems worried. You think that the evidence may have been trashed?
Yes, I do. When you see these 19th century buildings and you think of the size that this church might have been, it could well be under one of these and we could have lost it.
Yeah.
So the strategy is to try and find the shape and extent of the graveyard, because the church is going to be somewhere in the middle of that, hopefully.
We know that the medieval church consisted of a nave and chancel, so it could have been small enough to have fitted into the footprint of any one of the incident room workshops. Day 2 here at Glendon Hall in Northamptonshire, where we've discovered over 30 medieval burials, and this morning we're going to peel back all this earth here to see if we can find the church that goes with them. And we're extending a trench over here to find the extent of the cemetery. Also one on the far side of this building, another one in there, and a fourth one deep in here, which could prove a little bit difficult. Matt's starting to take off layers of building rubble to look for the church. Meanwhile, Kerry has begun to expose an adult skeleton, which looks in much better nick than the multiple burials emerging from Phil's pit.
Well, this is getting really complicated in here. I mean, back at this end, we've got a burial. We've got the hand and part of the thigh bone down in here, and that represents a burial which is in here, and it's obviously extending underneath here. And then on the top of that, we've got this stone-lined burial with this deposit of just jumbled bones, which must have been put in either when this burial went in or when they actually put the building up.
So if this is a comparatively late grave, we're probably looking at something that's really of relatively high status. I mean, somebody's taken a lot of care and trouble over getting these stones, bringing them in, lining the grave.
It's quite amazing. This is the only grave on the site that has got stones like this.
Most of the bodies in our cemetery would have been buried within 3 days of death, lowered into the grave with their shrouds tied at the legs. The Glendon parish priest would have purged them of their sins with a sprinkling of holy water from a sprig of a herb called hyssop, before touching them with a processional cross. Jack is still working on the skeleton of a 6 to 7 year old boy, but we're ready to lift the remains of a child who would have been about 4 when he died. We'll only lift the burials that Martin's building work would disturb. The others will be allowed to remain where they are in the grounds of Glendon Hall. Yesterday, we were looking for the reason why the old Hollow Way was diverted from its original course straight through Glendon. But frustratingly, geophys aren't able to come up with an explanation.
One or two things, but nothing special.
No obvious buildings or anything like that?
Definitely no stone buildings on this platform here, and nothing occupation-like that I can pinpoint.
That's useful though, John, because we did debate about whether to put a trench in this. And I think, you know, we probably wouldn't on the basis of what you've said anyway.
If it's not beside the kink in the road, it's even more likely that our church is inside the cemetery. So Ian is about to put in our third test pit, deep in the undergrowth on the east side. Once he gets the digger into the copse, he'll be on the lookout for more burials. At the other end of the cemetery, Rakshar has found a piece of a child's jawbone.
Do we know how old it is at all?
Well, it's obviously an infant. It's still got its milk teeth. This is a milk tooth, that's a milk tooth, and you've got one of the permanent teeth coming through, developed in there. So it's about sort of 3 to 4, something like that.
So we now know that the cemetery extends further to the west, but in the east there are no signs of any more burials.
Absolutely clean, there are no finds in it.
While the search for St Helens continues, Richard and Raysan are seeing if the Flemish glass that we know decorated the church in the 16th century fits into the window tracery in the garden folly.
So what about the East End ones? We can do a grander version.
A grander version, slightly larger, but still 3-bay, I think.
They're beginning to build up an impression of what the church might have looked like. But there's still no sign of it where we extended the trench this morning, and we're halfway through the dig. After a day and a half of trawling through the records, our Northamptonshire archaeology expert, Glenn, has found evidence of a drawing of our church, which is useful, A, because it could tell us what it looks like, but more importantly, it could give us a clue about its actual location. Only problem is, it's not here, it's in London in the British Library, and it's too valuable a document to take out, and we're not allowed to photograph it, so we're sending Victor out to draw us a copy of it. Have you got your pencil?
I've got everything ready.
And your paper?
Yep.
The whole dig's depended on you, mate.
Thanks.
Good luck. But we can't wait for Victor's drawing, so Matt is putting another test pit in to the north of the cemetery, where the owners found stone foundations when they were landscaping their gardens. Perhaps this could be the foundations of the church. Jackie is taking a look at the skeleton in Kerry's trench.
It's much smaller and more gracile than some of the other adult skeletons we've seen.
What does gracile mean?
Quite slightly built, petite, one might say.
Yeah.
This angle here looks fairly broad, which would suggest you've got a female, but it'd be easy to tell when we can see more of it.
What about these bones here?
Well, that looks like we've got at least 2 there, unless somebody's got 3 big toes, which isn't very likely. So there's at least parts of 2 more going off in that direction. Again, adult ones they look like.
Phil's burials are still multiplying. He's now revealed a stone-lined grave, a jumble of bones, a child and the skeleton of a baby.
So we've got 4 interconnecting burials, all in a very small space, which really is probably what I'd expect from a medieval cemetery.
Yeah, but it seems to be very different from what we've got over here with what looks like graves that are neat and tidy and respecting each other.
Seems to be. I mean, you've got to remember, with these burials, we haven't yet lifted one intact skeleton. And we don't actually know that they're actually sitting on the bedrock natural. It's perfectly possible that there might be more bodies underneath.
We're beginning to work on the village where these people lived. Stuart's looking for a spot to put in a trench to confirm that the platforms on the south side of the Holloway really are the remains of the village of Glendon. While Geophiz are hoping to add some detail to the earthwork survey in the North Field by using magnetometry, which shows up signs of occupation such as ditches and pits. Glenn's scouring documents around the time of the Black Death to see if he can find out when the village started to fall apart. The English landscape's covered with deserted medieval villages. There are over 100 in Northamptonshire alone, and just next door to Glendon, Barford and half of Rushton disappear within about 10 years of each other.
We've got some documents already. Now here's one which is a survey from 1327 that actually gives us some of the people who lived in this village.
Like who?
We've got Robert Marriott, had a cottage and 1 virgate of land.
And how much is that at this time?
Well, later documents suggest it's 20 acres.
Oh, right.
So a fair-sized farm for that period.
And these are the rents they're paying, are they?
That's
There's 5 shilling, 2 shilling, 12 pence and so on.
Yeah, but they're cottages. They only have a house. They don't have any land.
Ah, right. So they're landless labourers, probably working on the other places.
Essentially, yeah.
Right.
John Lane, Richard Chapman, Roger Merrick. So these people could actually be buried out here.
Almost certainly they are the people buried in the graveyard.
If they lived here in 1327, these people and their children might well have been victims of the Black Death 30 years later. But we'll never know, because the disease acts so rapidly that it leaves no trace on the bones. Lifting the child's skull is a delicate process because the bones are so fragile. Phil's now found a fifth body below the skeleton of the baby. This one looks like a strong male, perhaps one of the labourers. Pottery finds from this pit confirm that we have an eastern boundary of the cemetery.
We've got a very small assemblage of pottery which came from this pit down here. Now, there's not much, but it is telling us a little story. I mean, looking at it, you can see that the rim of this pot's got quite thick soot all the way around it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's obviously been on a fire, which is the sort of thing you'd expect.
Yes, so it comes off in the sun. They didn't do their washing up very well.
It's a domestic assemblage.
Right.
It's probably been used for cooking or boiling something, you know. So it's evidence of domestic activity. You wouldn't expect to find pottery in a living cemetery, yeah? I mean, the graves are all that side. There's no graves coming this way, so it could actually be that we're outside the cemetery here.
Things are taking shape in the cemetery, so we're almost ready to start digging on the south side of the medieval village.
Right. Now, happy with the size of the plot? Things, I mean, this look like a series of tenement plots,
I don't mind if it's a small plot. I mean, if we found a cottager with a smaller holding, that'd be interesting.
Okay.
Hey, don't let him take over.
That's coming off easy, isn't it?
There were no stones to mark the graves of our Glendon villagers, and it seems that many of them were unceremoniously chopped through when these buildings were erected. But there are some gravestones here. What's all this?
This is the Glendon dog graveyard, Tony.
Dog graveyard?
Yeah, the pets and the pack animals that lived here many years ago. We've even got a ledger here dating back to 1793 with some of the dogs' names. We've got Lively, Lady, Lily, Lovely.
Have you seen this one?
Yes. I thought you'd like that.
Tony. It's ironic, isn't it, that on the far side of this building we've got the Victorians hacking the earlier dead bodies to pieces, totally failing to record their names, while at the same time on this side of the building they're creating their own little idyllic graveyard to the memory of their pets. We're beginning to find some pottery where our village might have stood.
What you got?
You tell us.
Sort of stuff that gets you excited.
Yeah, that looks more like it. I mean, looking at this, it's all the sort of the standard medieval course words we get around here. It starts in the sort of 12th century, goes through the 13th, 14th. Right. This bit's particularly interesting because it's a medieval Shelley word jug handle. The jug handles like this only tend to be 12th century. They go out when the glazed industry comes in in the 13th, so that gives us a reasonably early date. It's quite nice, that.
Well, there's quite a lot of other stuff down here, look.
Yeah, I mean, oh yeah, look at that, that's lovely. Well, that's your 13th, 14th century glazeware. That's sort of Stannion lived in. It's only made like about 10 miles up the road. I mean, with that and these, I mean, we're looking 12th to 14th century probably.
Well, that's just the life of the settlement, isn't it?
It is. It's all coming out of this earthwork here, which we think is the house, and all in concentration.
Well, you got more pottery out of this trench than you've got from the whole of the cemetery area up there.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
well, I'm sure this is where they live in the earthworks to give the game away, you know. So.
Yeah, true.
Things are progressing in the cemetery. By the end of the second day, another skeleton is emerging in Rackshire's first test pit, but nothing more from either of two further test pits. Matt's found the dark stain of some kind of feature, but no sign of the church. So by the end of day 2, we have the extent of the cemetery on the north, the west and the east. The church should be somewhere within this area. This grave cut marks the furthest west point of our cemetery. Behind me over there, we've got around 40 bodies. Not only that, but we know the names of some of the people and even how much land they had. We're into our final day at Glendon in Northamptonshire, where we've found 5 layers of bodies in a medieval cemetery. And now we're beginning to get an impression of the village where they lived. Where exactly are we in this medieval village?
Well, you're on the edge of a medieval road for a start off. That dip going up there is the old road.
That's the hollow way?
That's the one, yeah. And coming off this hollow way are a series of boundaries. These earthworks coming off up here, they're a series of regular plots.
So what do we think's going on in this trench?
Well, this should be where you get settlement and occupation in this area, and out towards that far end of the trench would be where you get the back garden and all the rubbish chucked out the back.
Mick, we've only got 1 day left, haven't we?
Yeah.
Do you think in that time we can learn much about this village?
Well, we could at least get some dating evidence, you know, that will go with the documents we've got. If we can actually show that the stuff here from the 12th century to the 14th or something like that, and if we're very lucky, we might actually get a structure of a building or a house or something like that of the people that we know were living here.
Paul, we've got the names of people who were living here in 1327. Can you give us any pottery which ties into that date?
Well, the medieval stuff that was coming up last night when we were machining has got a broad span that certainly covers the known dates of occupation of the village, yeah. But there is a potential spanner in the works, I'm afraid.
Which is what?
Which is this. It's a piece of Roman. It's 1st, 2nd century, and it's in really nice condition, and it came right off the top of this ditch just here.
So there are still problems to iron out?
Yeah.
Are we just going to limit ourselves to this trench?
Well, I think we've got the labour to do more. So I think another evaluation trench perhaps on the next platform up.
2 of the villagers who lived and worked in these fields are being revealed for the first time since they died 6 to 7 centuries ago. Jack is preparing to lift the tiny pelvis of a baby who was probably born a few weeks premature and didn't survive the birth. Bad news. Victor's returned from the British Library, where the picture of St Helens turned out to be a drawing of Glendon Hall. The good news is that there's a spire in the background. But hasn't that solved it? We know where the church is.
I don't think that's the church site, because we've got the burials up the other end.
We've got a flipping great spire here.
Yeah, but, you know, you have to think of gardens and garden features and all the rest of it, and I wonder whether that actually, if it is part of the church, whether they haven't moved it and put it in the gardens, because it's nowhere near the cemetery.
If Mick's right and this is a garden feature, it doesn't help us find the medieval church. Archives suggest that the church and village stood here between the 11th and 16th centuries, but the archaeology is beginning to suggest something different.
Have a look at this. See all this pottery?
Yeah.
It's all late Saxon. This piece in particular has got me really excited. Can you see the traces of red paint on it? I mean, probably a little bit difficult to see.
Yeah, yeah.
We know where this is from. It's from Stamford. They've dug the kiln. That's no later than about 910 AD.
And where did it come from in your trench?
See this massive ditch down here?
Well, the moat at the bottom?
Yeah. That's where it's coming from. We've got a massive late Saxon enclosure ditch. This was filled in before the Norman conquest.
Cool.
Now, I've seen something like this before around here. There's a site a few miles down the road called West Cotton.
Oh, yeah, in Rawns.
Yeah, deserted medieval village.
Yeah.
The earliest phase of it was a late Saxon timber phase that probably looks something like this. You've got a massive moat with timber buildings inside it.
But this is like a sort of Thanes Hall, isn't it? A sort of fairly wealthy but not too high up the pile Saxon lord.
The local big man, I suppose, for want of a better expression, yeah.
It's getting more confusing by the minute. We've got evidence of the Saxons, but not enough to suggest our medieval peasants actually lived here. So we're putting in another trench over the next platform further up the field. John and Henry are superimposing the geophys of the North Field over the topography and can clearly see evidence of earlier phases of occupation.
That is just so good, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, if we highlight that medieval ditch going with the earthwork and can actually try to show the prehistoric runs underneath the medieval bank.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key, isn't it?
So Martin's friends in the south weren't the first people in Glendon. But the hard life that they led is evident in their bones even now.
If we start off here, he's got really bad dental abscesses. That's just one of them there. And that would have been both very painful and his breath would have been quite smelly. You wouldn't want to needed to stand this close to him. Oh, God.
That's
oh, horrible creature. Oh, dearie me.
How old is he?
About your age, I should think. Yeah, so sort of older.
Prime of life.
Yes, if you say so, Phil. And then we've got some sinusitis. If you look just inside this area here, you can see there's this very fine woven new bone inside the sinus cavity. Now, this is this part of the sinus. And you know how painful it is when you get sinusitis. It goes right up into your head. So he'd have had a bad head as well. But his spine's the real giveaway, because this tells us what kind of a hard life he had and how much physical labour he did. You can see he's got this new bone growth around the edge of the vertebra, and these are called osteophytes, and that's basically a reflection of age-related wear and tear. So he's been doing a lot of hard physical manual labour, lots of bending and lifting, probably a bit like you've been doing over the past 3 days, lots of shovelling and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, I've been doing it for more than 3 days. I've been doing it my whole lifetime.
Well, he probably has. Well, you might actually look like this underneath.
Working in these fields would have been slow and backbreaking. Today we have modern mechanical diggers, but they don't seem to be helping us locate the village where our peasant farmers lived.
It's too clean, isn't it? It's just way too clean. Yeah. What we really need is, like, you know, big piles of bone and pot and black stuff. It's just not there.
I don't think you can get it. It's starting to look like that trench down there, which is just absolutely clear.
Yeah. Nobody living here, is there?
We're going across the road.
I think we should, because
there's
pottery coming up from the other side on that.
Get the geophys plot.
Yeah, well, there was that bit of just ploughed ground over there. I had a wander about on that yesterday, and I picked 3 or 4 bits of medieval pot off that.
So a final slot over the road.
Well,
If our medieval peasants weren't living in the south field, surely they must have been in the north field. But we've only got half a day left to find out. Back in the cemetery, Phil's extending his trench, searching for some sign of the church.
Sure, I can't help but think there's something in there, Ian. Coming along here, look. Do you see that?
Yep.
No, but I mean, it don't look like a grave.
What do you think? A rubbed out wall?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what it is. All I know is I think it's there. But we're not finding any more graves.
No.
Please, God, no more graves. Let's go on back a bit.
OK.
If this is a robbed-out wall, perhaps it's our first archaeological evidence of the church. Just after lunch on day 3, and geophys have finished their survey of the field to the north of the Hollow Way.
I mean,
cracking results as well.
Fantastic results, but ignore most of them.
Right.
Concentrate on this sort of rectilinear enclosure arrangement. These, I'm certain, are the medieval tenements shadowing the Hollow Way.
So these are reflecting the earthworks that we can see on the surface, in fact.
Yeah. And it's just possible we've got a structure
right.
in here, close to the Hollow Way.
So probably a house at the front of the tenement, facing south.
At the front of the tenement, with the fields behind.
So that's a potential building target, isn't it?
So I think the trench across
it,
Straight away, it looks like we're starting to get some results.
Oh, bingo, look at that. Lovely.
That's it.
That's 13th century, yeah. Mind you, we're getting pottery over the other side. We don't have any features to go with it.
Oh, we've got features here. Look.
Yeah, it looks like it, doesn't it? Looks like it.
One or two interesting things. The first thing is in relation to where the
Stuart's trying to work out what the spire in Victor's drawing represents.
Just in this area here is a mound, just there.
Oh, yeah.
And the position of it, when you compare it with Victor's drawing, gives you the exact perspective and line that matches the drawing. And what I think that mound is a garden feature on which they put something like an obelisk or
that's
an
the
eye catcher.
spike we can see on
That's it, yeah.
right.
I think it's a garden feature. It fits in with the design layout we see for this parkland, and it's exactly the sort of thing you get in this kind of grand landscape.
Such grand gardens seem worlds away from the lives of the medieval peasants in our cemetery, who somehow managed to keep the village going for 150 years after the Black Death.
What have you got then, Paul?
It's looking a lot more like it, Mick. We've got medieval pottery, we've got animal bone, we've got slag. It looks like the sort of stuff you'd see kicking around in a yard in a medieval tenement.
So this is much more the sort of occupational debris you'd expect here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we just weren't getting this over the side of the road. Well, right, we were getting bits of pottery, but this is the sort of stuff you'd expect to find where people were living, you know?
The evidence from the trenches now suggests another theory, that the villagers worked the land on the south side of the Hollow Way, but lived on the north. But just when we think we've cracked it, Kerry finds a pot.
Paul?
Yep.
You cleaned that piece of pot?
I have.
What do you reckon?
Well, it looks suspiciously Roman to me, Kerry. It's not Saxon or medieval.
What do you think of the glass?
Oh,
here?
blimey, that's a glass vessel, isn't it? Look, you can see the rim there. Is that burnt bone as well?
That's burnt bone, so we've got the pot, burnt bone, and
You've
glass.
got cremation, haven't you? It's a Roman cremation. That's beautiful.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's going to slow us down.
Yeah. Well, and almost to a standstill.
With only a few hours left, pressure is on to find some dating evidence for the features in the trench to help us work out what a Roman cremation is doing in the middle of a medieval village. Phil's finally ready to find out what's inside the stone-lined grave he found yesterday.
There's something buried underneath there. It's a big old stone, isn't it?
It is.
Go on, have a look.
Ooh.
Anything underneath
Oh, wonderful things.
there? Don't give me
I
that.
can't see anything. I'm afraid. Shall I hold the matter? Can you have a look?
Yes. Well, no, I'm not gonna. Have you got it?
Yep. Oh, look, one bit of bone.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Come on back, you can do it.
Under the stone is yet more bone, so we have another conundrum on our hands. Perhaps we're not looking at a grave after all.
So this could be sitting on top of this great mass of redeposited bone, and could actually be the base of a grave, do you think? The base of a stone-lined grave? We've got enough
I
room.
don't think, no, because it would put the grave up there.
Yeah, and that's too high, do you think?
I'm sure it is. I just wonder whether, I mean, I wonder if it's not a wall foundation, is it?
Wall of what were you precisely thinking? Wall of church, were you thinking?
Well, I mean, it makes you wonder.
At last, this is the clue we've been waiting for. The stone lies at the end of the robbed-out wall which Phil discovered earlier. Our archaeologists agree that it seems most likely that the original 13th century church must have been where the rear of the incident room stands. An extension was added later over the first burials that Martin found. If only the rest of the village were that straightforward. Kerry, you got any more of our medieval village?
We have, but I think what I have here might change your perception.
Oh, crikey. So this is a cremation urn then, is it?
I think it is.
What do you make of it, Jackie?
Well, most of the bone is actually outside the vessel, so it's not acted as a container, it's a grave good, the same as the glass vessel
It's
is.
another offering, in fact.
Yeah. And having a glass vessel there suggests we've got quite a high status burial.
Yeah.
And looking at the bone, there is human bone here, but there's also some animal bone.
Right.
Now, the Romans were particularly keen on their pyres in putting offerings of either piglet or chicken, and this looks a little bit like chicken to me.
Right.
So, Mick, we've got that big piece of Roman pottery over there. We've got this. Are we looking at a Roman landscape?
Yes, but underneath the medieval one, I think. In fact, if you look at the geophysics and you look at the Henry's terrain model, you can see that there are features that don't align with the earthworks, the earthworks are almost certainly medieval. So there's something underneath. It does make me wonder what the medieval peasants would have thought if they dug down under their house and found this, doesn't it?
The glass vessel, I mean, they would never see, it's fantastic.
They wouldn't have known
never
what that
see-
was at all, would they? No.
I'm sure this is where this idea of wizards and golden ages and things come from, because something like that they wouldn't understand, and something you don't understand is magic, and that would have been magic.
Post-excavation work revealed that the cremation was a 16-year-old girl. Inside the jug was found the fragile remains of another vessel made of glass no thicker than a light bulb. Right at the end of the day, tiny Roman pottery sherds date the post holes in this trench. But there are no signs of any medieval buildings, so our peasants weren't living here after all. And the trench where we discovered the Saxon Thane's residence hasn't got any features dating to the medieval period either.
I mean, I think I keep coming back to that point of Paul's, you know, that it ought to be really full of charcoal and grot.
So our archaeologists are forced to rethink the location of the village. It now seems impossible that our villagers were living in these fields at all. Instead, it's more likely that the enclosures on these platforms had animal pens and barns on them. We were also confident that the village would be on those platforms, and it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, we're used to seeing earthworks like that, and used to assuming that that's where the medieval farmsteads are. Most of us would have put a decent bottle of wine on there being medieval farms down each of those plots. So we've all learnt a lot from this. We've been on a steep learning curve, and it's sort of changed our ideas.
It's a lesson for all of us. I mean, there's no stone buildings there, and they should be in those enclosures.
So where is the village?
Well, we know where it isn't, because we know where all the medieval fields are around here. We know it's not down the other end. So there's only one place it can be, really.
Which is?
Under these buildings behind us.
I mean, Northamptonshire villages almost always find the church in the heart of the village, and the church is just over there.
The medieval village of Glendon must have been near the church where the rambling buildings of Glendon Hall now stand. In 1514, a new landowner decided that sheep pasture would be a more profitable use of land, and so he pulled down most of the houses, evicting 62 people. Shortly after that, the first Glendon Hall was built, and the church became a private chapel complete with expensive Flemish glass. The next 4 centuries saw generations of landowners demolish, build and add to the hall, just as Martin was doing when he found his first friend in the south. I can't remember an episode of Time Team where we've been confronted by so many burials, not just these medieval ones. We've had the Roman one, we've even had a Victorian pet cemetery. But now that the Christian burials can be reinterred, Martin can carry on building again. In fact, from now on there'll be 3 generations of Hipwells living here, and his mum can look forward to her new home. It's almost as though the village lives on. It's just that it's not out in the fields, it's here in the Great Hall.